My wife returned after 2 weeks away with her ex. She called it closure. I am all yours now, babe, she said. My wife came back after 2 weeks away with her ex. She called it closure. I didn't challenge her, didn't raise my voice, didn't throw anything or storm out of the room. While clearing the table after dinner, I asked one simple question. She froze halfway through standing up from the dishwasher. Didn't look at me, didn't sit back down, just stood there bent at an awkward angle with one hand still on the dishwasher door. Then she reached for her phone with shaking hands. I'm 37 years old, and I thought I knew my wife. We'd been married for 9 years. Met in our late 20s through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was wearing a yellow sundress and laughing at something someone said. And I remember thinking she had one of those laughs that made you want to be the one causing it. We dated for 2 years before getting married. 2 years of dinners and movies and road trips and slowly merging our lives together. I met her parents. She met mine. We talked about the future like it was something we could see clearly. Something solid and real. Built what I thought was a solid life together. She worked as a project coordinator at a healthcare company downtown. Had an office with a window and a title that sounded impressive. I'm a licensed electrician with my own small business. Started it 8 years ago with nothing but a truck and some tools and a whole lot of late nights. Built it into something respectable. 6 employees now. Enough work to keep us all busy. We had a house in the suburbs. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a decent backyard with a patio I built myself. A golden retriever named Biscuit who we got as a puppy 4 years ago and who somehow became the center of our household. Routines that felt comfortable. Saturday morning farmers market. Sunday dinners with friends or family. Wednesday nights were our date nights. Even if that just meant ordering pizza and watching a movie. Maybe too comfortable looking back on it. No kids yet, but we'd been talking about it more seriously in the past year. Had even started looking at school districts and daycares in the area. Making plans like people do when they think the future is a straight line, pointing in one direction, when they don't see the cliff edge coming. About 3 months ago, her ex contacted her. The ex. The one she dated for 4 years before me. The one she said was her first real love. The one whose name still occasionally came up in stories about her 20s. Greg. I'd heard enough about him over the years to paint a decent picture. They met in college, junior year. In some communications class they both hated. Stayed together through their early careers. Moved in together right after graduation. Broke up when she was 26 because he took a job in another state and neither of them wanted to do long distance. She always described it as a mutual decision. Said they just grew apart. Said the timing was wrong. Said it was one of those relationships that was right for a season, but not for a lifetime. Said she didn't regret it, but didn't miss it either. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? People have exes. People have histories. I have an ex-girlfriend I dated for 2 years in my mid-20s. We didn't work out either. That's just life. I wasn't insecure about it. At least I didn't think I was. At least I told myself I wasn't. He'd reached out through social media one evening while she was scrolling on the couch next to me. Said he was going through a divorce. Going through a rough time. Wanted to reconnect with old friends because he felt alone and isolated. Innocent enough. Or so she presented it. She showed me his message that same evening. Held up her phone and let me read it. Looked innocent. Just a, hey, how have you been? Heard you got married. Hope life is treating you well kind of thing. She asked if I minded if she grabbed coffee with him. Just coffee. Just catching up. Just old friends reconnecting. I said fine. Because what else was I supposed to say? If I'd said no, I'd be the controlling husband. The jealous guy who can't handle his wife having a conversation with someone from her past. I'd seen enough posts online about controlling partners to know I didn't want to be that guy. So I swallowed whatever discomfort I felt and said yes. Tried not to think about it. Told myself it was nothing. Told myself I was being mature about it. One coffee turned into regular texts. I'd see her smiling at her phone in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. That specific smile. The one where her eyes light up and she bites her lower lip like she's trying to hold back a laugh. I used to be on the receiving end of that smile. Back when we were dating. Back when everything was new and exciting and we couldn't wait to see each other. Now it was directed at a screen. At messages from another man. When I asked about it, she'd wave it off. Said they were just talking. Said they, old memories. Funny stories from college. Catching up on the years they'd missed. Nothing serious. Nothing to worry about. Nothing that should concern me. I noticed patterns. She started texting him in the mornings before I woke up. I'd roll over and see her propped against the headboard, phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. Late at night after I went to bed. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and see the glow of her phone through our bedroom door. During dinner, she'd glance at her phone, and her expression would shift, soften, like she was having a private conversation I wasn't part of, which, technically, she was. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure, reading too much into nothing. That this was just a friendship rekindling and I needed to trust my wife. Needed to be the bigger person. Needed to not let my insecurities ruin a perfectly good marriage. Then came the request that changed everything. We were getting ready for bed one Thursday night. She was sitting on her side of the mattress, rubbing lotion into her hands like she did every night, and she said it casually, like it was nothing, like she was asking me to pick up milk on the way home from work. Greg is really struggling with the divorce. His wife left him for someone else, and he's not handling it well. He asked if I'd be willing to spend some time with him, help him process things. He doesn't have anyone else right now. His family is all in another state. Most of his friends were mutual friends with his wife. Spend time with him how? He wants to take a trip to this place we used to go when we were dating. A cabin up in the mountains, a little rental place with a view of the valley. He thinks it would help him find closure, get away from everything and just think. I stopped brushing my teeth, set the toothbrush down on the sink, looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, tried to process what she was actually asking me. A trip with your ex-boyfriend. To a place you used to go when you were together. Just a weekend, maybe a week. He really needs support right now, and he wants his ex-girlfriend to provide that support while he's going through a divorce, while he's emotionally vulnerable. It's not like that. He needs a friend. What's it like then, Jenna? She turned to face me, came to stand in the bathroom doorway. I could see she'd already made up her mind, that this conversation was a formality. She was asking for permission she'd already given herself. The question was whether I was going to make it easy or hard. It's closure, for both of us. We never really ended things properly. It just fizzled out when he moved. There wasn't a conversation. No goodbye. Just gradually fewer phone calls and then nothing. He thinks if we can revisit that place, have some real conversations, we can both move forward. Move on. For good. You want to take a week-long trip with your ex-boyfriend to get closure. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. How else should I say it? How should I frame my wife wanting to go away with another man to a romantic cabin in the mountains? She sat on the edge of the bed, put her hands in her lap, looked at me with those brown eyes that I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. Eyes that suddenly seemed to belong to someone I didn't recognize. I need this. I didn't realize how much unresolved stuff I still had with him until we started talking again. It's been sitting there for years. This weight I didn't know I was carrying. It's affecting us. Our marriage. I can feel it. Our marriage was fine until he showed up. Was it? Be honest. That stopped me. Because she was right. In a way. Things had been fine. Fine. Not great. Not passionate. Not exciting. Just fine. Comfortable. Predictable. We'd settled into a routine that felt more like roommates than lovers. Dinner on the couch watching shows. Quick pecks on the cheek before work. Weekends running errands and doing yard work and seeing friends. When was the last time we'd really talked? Really connected? When was the last time we'd stayed up late just talking to each other the way we used to? I couldn't remember. And that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. But I didn't think the solution was her running off with an ex-boyfriend to a romantic cabin in the mountains. How long? I asked. 2 weeks. 2 weeks? He wants to really work through things, not rush it. Take the time to actually process and heal. And you agreed to this? I told him I needed to talk to you first. But yes, I want to go. I need to go. I think it will help us in the long run. Help us. Help me. Help me figure out what I really want, what I'm missing, why I've been feeling so restless lately. That last sentence hung in the air like poison. What you really want? You're not sure anymore? I'm saying I have things to work through, and I can't do that while I'm here, living our normal life with all its routines and obligations. I need space, room to think, away from everything. We argued for another hour. I said it was insane. A married woman doesn't take a 2-week vacation with an ex-boyfriend. That's not how marriages work. She said I was being insecure and controlling. I said she was asking permission to have an emotional affair if it wasn't already physical. She said I was making it into something it wasn't, that I was blowing it out of proportion, that I was being unfair. Round and round. The same points repackaged in different words. Neither of us convincing the other. Neither of us budging. My voice getting louder. Her voice getting colder. Both of us digging into our positions. In the end, I didn't explicitly say yes. But I didn't say no either. I just went silent, lay down in bed, turned off my lamp, stared at the ceiling until sleep finally took me somewhere around 3 a.m. She took that as permission. She left 3 days later. Packed a suitcase like she was going to a work conference. Casual, efficient, professional, efficient. She kissed me on the cheek at the door. Told me she'd text when she arrived. Told me not to worry. Told me she loved me. Said it the same way she'd said it 1,000 times before. Habit more than feeling. I watched her drive away from the front window. Her car backing out of the driveway. Turning onto the street. Disappearing around the corner. Biscuit sat next to me, tail wagging, not understanding why mom was leaving. Made two of us. Update 1. The first week was absolute torture. She texted sporadically, made it safely. Weather is nice. Having good conversations. Nothing substantial. Nothing that told me what was actually happening. Nothing that made me feel like I was still her husband, and not some stranger she'd left behind. The kind of text you send to an acquaintance, not the person you've been married to for 9 years. I tried to keep busy, went to work, ran jobs, dealt with clients and their electrical emergencies, hired a new apprentice and trained him on basic residential work. Came home to an empty house that felt bigger and quieter than it had any right to be. Walked Biscuit twice a day because he needed it, and because it gave me something to do besides think. Made dinner for one. Chicken breast and vegetables. Ate standing at the counter because sitting at the table alone felt too pathetic. Watched shows I didn't care about just to fill the silence. Scrolled my phone until my eyes burned and the words blurred together. Lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining every possible scenario, every possible betrayal, every possible way she could be touching him, looking at him, laughing with him the way she used to laugh with me. My brain became my worst enemy, creating images I couldn't unsee, conversations I couldn't unhear, playing movies in my head that made my stomach turn. Friends asked where she was. My buddy Dave noticed I seemed off at poker night. I said she was visiting family, a sick aunt, something about needing to help out. I wasn't about to admit my wife was on a 2-week romantic getaway with her ex-boyfriend under the guise of emotional closure. Couldn't bring myself to say those words out loud. Saying them would make it real. Saying them would force me to confront what was actually happening, what I was letting happen. So I lied and smiled and pretended everything was fine. By day 10, the text stopped completely. Nothing. For 3 days. I called twice. Both went to voicemail. Her phone rang 4 times before clicking over to her recorded message. Hi, you've reached Jenna. Leave a message and I'll call you back. I didn't leave a message. What was I supposed to say? Hey honey, just checking if you're done reconnecting with your ex yet. Wondering if you're still my wife or if that's changed. Give me a call when you get a chance. I texted asking if she was okay. No response. Day 11. Nothing. Checked my phone every 5 minutes like an anxious teenager. Day 12. Nothing. Started Googling divorce lawyers just to see what came up. Didn't call any, just looked. By day 13, I was convinced she wasn't coming back, that she'd made her choice and I was on the losing end of it. That 9 years of marriage meant nothing compared to the pull of a first love and a cabin in the mountains, that I'd been a placeholder all along, the safe choice she settled for, while the love of her life was unavailable. Then I got a single message, coming home tomorrow. We should talk. No context, no explanation, no apology for 3 days of silence, no hint of what she was feeling or thinking. Just 6 words and a period. We should talk. Nothing good ever follows those words. Nobody in the history of relationships has ever followed, we should talk with good news. Nobody has ever said we should talk and then announced they won the lottery. I didn't sleep that night. She walked in the door at 6:30 on a Tuesday evening, tanned from mountain sun, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen her in months, looking more at peace than she'd looked in years. Lighter somehow. Like she'd set down something heavy. She set her suitcase down in the entryway. Biscuit ran to greet her, tail going crazy, pawing at her legs. She knelt down to pet him, cooing at him like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just spent 2 weeks doing whatever she did with another man. Like she was coming home from a spa weekend instead of whatever that was. She hugged me, wrapped her arms around me and squeezed. I stood there with my arms at my sides, not sure what to do, not sure what I was allowed to do anymore, not sure who this person was. How was it? I asked, voice flat. Good. Really good. I'm glad I went. Did you get your closure? I think so. Yeah, I really do. She didn't elaborate, just started unpacking her suitcase, hanging clothes back in the closet like nothing had happened. Like she'd been gone for a normal trip, and not 2 weeks with an ex-boyfriend I'd been imagining her with every single night, folding sweaters, putting away jeans, humming to herself. I watched her move around the bedroom, noticed she was wearing a necklace I didn't recognize. Silver chain, small pendant shaped like a mountain, something new, something that wasn't hers 3 weeks ago. Are we going to talk about it? I asked. Let me settle in first. I'm exhausted from the drive. She showered, changed into comfortable clothes, came downstairs with wet hair and a face free of makeup. I'd made dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta with red sauce. The same thing I'd made 100 times, and we sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd had 1,000 meals, talked about work, about our days, about nothing and everything, celebrated anniversaries, had quiet Sunday breakfasts, made plans for the future. Now it felt like a battleground, like a no man's land between two people who used to be on the same side. So, I said, so, Tell me about the trip. It was what I needed. We talked a lot. Really talked. Worked through old feelings, old hurts. I understand now why things ended with us, why they had to end. And? And I have clarity now about what I want. My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. She's going to tell me she's leaving, that she chose him, that 9 years was just practice for the real thing, that I was never the one, just the one who was available when the real one wasn't. Which is, I want to make our marriage work. I know that now. Being with him made me realize what I have with you. I should have felt relieved, should have felt like a weight had been lifted, like the uncertainty was over and we could move forward. Instead, I felt suspicious. Something about the way she said it. Being with him, spending time with him, talking with him. What did any of those phrases actually mean? What was she not telling me? You know what I mean? She said when I didn't respond. Do I? She reached across the table for my hand. Instinct made me move it to pick up my water glass. Her hand hung in the air for a second before she pulled it back. Her face flickered. Hurt, maybe. Or disappointment. I know this is weird. I know it's not conventional, but I'm being honest with you. I needed to do this to know for sure. To resolve something that had been sitting unfinished in my head for years. And now I know. I want us. We ate in silence for a few minutes, forks scraping against plates. The only sound in the kitchen. I was trying to process, trying to figure out if I believed her, trying to decide if it even mattered whether I believed her. Some part of me had already checked out. Some part of me knew the answer to the question I hadn't asked yet. Did you sleep with him? The question came out flat. Not accusatory, just factual. Like I was asking about the weather. Is that really what matters? Yes. She set down her fork, looked at me, then looked away. Out the window, at the backyard where we'd planted tomatoes last summer and talked about installing a fire pit. I don't think we should focus on physical details. What matters is where we go from here. That's not an answer. I'm not going to give you an answer that lets you torture yourself with images. It's not helpful for either of us. But it happened. She didn't respond. Just looked down at her plate, pushed a piece of pasta around with her fork. That was all the answer I needed. The silence said everything her words wouldn't. I stood up, started clearing the table. She stood up too, gathering her dishes. We moved around the kitchen in a choreographed silence. Her washing, me drying, like we'd done 1,000 times before. Muscle memory carrying us through motions while our minds were elsewhere. While I was putting a plate in the cabinet, I asked the question that had been forming in my mind since she walked in the door. The question that would determine everything. The question I knew the answer to but needed to hear anyway. If he wasn't going through a divorce, I said, voice completely calm. If he was available, if he'd wanted you back, would you have come back? She froze halfway through standing up from loading the dishwasher. Didn't look at me. Didn't sit back down. Just stood there bent at an awkward angle, one hand still on the dishwasher door, suspended in place like time had stopped. Then she reached for her phone with shaking hands. Update 2. What are you doing? I asked. I need to call someone. Who? Who do you need to call right now? She didn't answer. Just walked into the other room. Phone pressed to her ear. I heard her talking in a low voice. Couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Panicked, desperate, urgent, asking for something, needing something. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the murmur of her voice through the wall. My wife, in our house, calling her ex-boyfriend, moments after I asked if she would have left me for him. She came back 5 minutes later, eyes red, phone clutched in both hands like a lifeline, like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to something. That was him, wasn't it? She nodded. Small movement, almost imperceptible. You were calling him, right in front of me. After I just asked if you'd have stayed with him if he'd been available, I needed to know something. What could you possibly need to know right now that's more important than answering my question? She just stared at me, and I understood. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She'd called to see if he'd changed his mind, to see if there was still a chance, to see if whatever he'd told her at the cabin was still the final answer. She was standing in our kitchen, 10 feet away from me, calling her ex to see if she should leave. Get out, I said. What? Get out of this house. Right now. You can't just kick me out. This is my home too. My name is on the mortgage. Then I'll leave. I grabbed my keys off the hook by the door, my wallet from the counter, walked past her toward the front entrance. She grabbed my arm. Wait, please, let me explain. Explain what? You just called your ex-boyfriend while I was standing right here, while I was asking you if our marriage meant anything, while I was asking if you would have chosen me. What explanation could possibly make that okay? I was scared. I panicked. I needed to know if he was serious about what he said. What did he say? She hesitated. I pulled my arm free, stepped back from her. He said he needed time to process his divorce, to figure out what he wanted. He said maybe in a year. If we were both still available? I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully absurd. So perfectly clear. So he benched you. What? He put you on hold. Told you maybe someday. Kept you as a backup option while he figures out his life. And you came back here because you couldn't just sit around waiting for him. Because you needed somewhere to be in the meantime. No. I came back because I realized this is where I belong. You realized that after he rejected you. Not before. Not during. After. After he told you he wasn't ready. After he told you to wait. That's when you suddenly realized our marriage was worth saving. She started crying, full tears streaming down her face, mascara running in dark lines down her cheeks. The whole production. I made a mistake. I know I did. But I'm here now, trying to fix it, trying to make things right. And you won't even give me a chance. A chance? You want me to give you a chance? You took 2 weeks to give him a chance. 2 weeks of my life where I sat here wondering if my wife was falling back in love with someone else, imagining what you were doing, who you were with, what you were saying. And I was right. She was falling for him. The only reason you're standing here right now is because he said no. And you want me to just accept that and move on? Pretend it didn't happen? I love you. No. You love the safety of this. You love having someone who will be here when your romantic adventures don't work out. Someone stable. Someone reliable. Someone who won't leave you hanging. But you don't love me. Not the way a wife should love a husband. I walked out the door. Got in my truck. Drove. I didn't know where I was going. Just drove. Through our neighborhood with its matching mailboxes and manicured lawns, past the grocery store where we shopped together every Sunday, past the park where we walked biscuit and talked about our weeks, past the restaurant where I proposed 7 years ago, past all the places that held memories of a life I thought we were building together, a life that turned out to be built on sand. I ended up at my buddy Dave's place across town. He took one look at my face and didn't ask questions, just opened the door wider and stepped aside, handed me a can of soda from the fridge, pointed to the couch, told me the guest room was mine for as long as I needed it. I stayed there for 3 days. Didn't go home, didn't answer her calls, let everything settle, let the shock fade into something colder and clearer. Update 3. On day 3, I went back to the house while she was at work, used my key like I still belonged there, which technically I did. It was still my house too. Packed a bag with enough clothes for a week, toiletries from the bathroom, a few things from my home office, laptop, some files I needed, the framed photo of me and Biscuit that sat on my desk, left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. That got her attention. She came home early, found me loading the last of my things into my truck, standing in the driveway with a duffel bag over my shoulder. What are you doing? Leaving. You can't just leave. Watch me. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. You spent 2 weeks making your choice. You're just upset it didn't work out the way you wanted. Upset he didn't want you back. That's not my problem anymore. That's not true. Then tell me what is true. Tell me exactly what happened on that trip. Every detail. No more vague talk about closure and conversations and working through feelings. She looked at me, mouth opening and closing, trying to find words that would make this okay, that would explain it away, that would make me understand. There weren't any. She knew it. I knew it. We were together, she said finally. Not the whole time. But yes, we were together. And I thought maybe we could try again. Maybe this was a second chance. But he said he wasn't ready. He said he needed time to process his divorce, to figure out what he wanted from life. He said maybe in a year, if we were both still available. He benched you, I said again. What? He benched you, put you on hold, put you in the waiting room while he figures himself out, kept you as an option for later. And you came back here because you couldn't just sit around waiting for him, couldn't stand the uncertainty. No, I came back because I realized this is where I belong. You realized that after he rejected you, not before. Not during. After. After he told you no. After he told you to wait. That's when you suddenly knew. She started sobbing. Real ugly crying. Shoulders shaking. Snot running. Making sounds that weren't quite words. I made a mistake. I know I did. But I'm here now. Trying to fix it. Trying to make it right. And you won't even give me a chance to prove myself. A chance? You want me to give you a chance? You took 2 weeks to give him a chance. 2 weeks of my life where I sat here alone in our house with our dog, wondering if my wife was falling back in love with someone else, imagining every possible scenario, driving myself crazy, and I was right to worry. You were. The only reason you're standing here right now is because he said no. I got in my truck. She grabbed the door, tried to keep me from closing it, fingernails digging into the frame. Please don't do this. Please. We can get help. We can work through this. Let go of the door. I won't. I won't let you leave like this. You let yourself leave for 2 weeks. I can leave for however long I want. I pulled the door closed, started the engine. She stood in the driveway crying as I drove away. I watched her in the rearview mirror, getting smaller and smaller until she disappeared around the corner. Just another figure in the distance. Update 4. I stayed with Dave for a week. Slept in his guest room on a mattress that was too soft. Ate takeout for most meals. Went to work during the day and tried to focus on jobs and clients and normal life. My phone never stopped buzzing. Her texts evolved like the stages of grief. Day 1. I'm so sorry. Please come home so we can talk. I'll explain everything. Day 2. I understand you're upset, but this silent treatment isn't fair to either of us. Day 3. Can you at least tell me if you're okay? I'm worried about you. Day 4. My sister says I should give you space, but I can't stand not knowing what you're thinking. Day 5. I've been calling and calling. Please just answer. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Day 6. This isn't you. The man I married wouldn't run away from his problems. Day 7. Fine. If you want to throw away 9 years over this, that's on you. I tried. Her sister called, left a voicemail asking me to please give Jenna another chance. Said everyone makes mistakes. Said marriage is about forgiveness and working through the hard times. Said I was being unfair. Her mother called, left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in me, that she thought I was better than this, that running away never solved anything, that real men face their problems. Even her father called, told me I was throwing away a good marriage over a mistake. A mistake. Like she'd forgotten to pick up milk. Not had a 2-week affair with her ex-boyfriend at a cabin in the mountains. Like those things were the same. On day 8, I finally called a lawyer, just to understand my options, to know where I stood legally. The lawyer was straightforward. Older guy with gray hair and reading glasses. Seen it all before. He laid out the facts without emotion or judgment. It would be messy, but doable. We'd been married 9 years, had joint assets, a house with both our names on the mortgage, retirement accounts that had been mingled over the years, bank accounts, credit cards, a whole financial life tangled together. It would take time, cost money, require paperwork and negotiations and probably some awkward conversations. But it could be done. People did it every day. I didn't file immediately, just sat with the information, let it settle, tried to figure out what I actually wanted. Did I want to divorce her? Part of me did. The part that felt betrayed, humiliated, replaced, the part that couldn't close my eyes without imagining her with him, laughing with him, touching him, telling him things she should have been telling me, the part that kept replaying that moment when she reached for her phone instead of answering my question. But another part of me, the part that remembered 9 years of mostly good times, birthday dinners and lazy Sundays and inside jokes that no one else understood, vacations we'd taken, holidays with family, the way she used to look at me when we were first together. That part hesitated, wondered if I was being too harsh, too proud, if I should give her a chance to make things right, if walking away was really the answer. On day 12, she showed up at Dave's place. I don't know how she found me, but she did. Dave answered the door, looked uncomfortable, and called me over. We need to talk, she said when I appeared. I don't think we do. Please, just give me 30 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 30 minutes, and then if you still want to leave, I won't fight it. I'll sign whatever papers you want. Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat in Dave's living room. He'd made himself scarce, said something about needing groceries, and she talked. Told me everything. How the trip started innocent. Really was just talking at first. Walking in the mountains. Cooking dinner together in the cabin kitchen. Sitting on the porch watching the sunset. Reminiscing about the old days when they were young and in love and the world seemed simpler. She said it felt familiar, comfortable, like slipping into an old pair of jeans that still fit even after years in the back of the closet. But then old feelings came back. The familiarity turned into something more. The history between them felt alive again. The nostalgia became something present tense. She said she started wondering what if? What if they'd never broken up? What if he'd never moved away? What if she'd gone with him when he asked? All those questions that haunt you about the path not taken. They slept together on night 4. She said it just happened. 1 minute they were talking on the couch after dinner, sitting close, shoulders touching. The next they were kissing. And then they were in the bedroom like no time had passed, and she said it felt like coming home, like finding something she'd lost and forgotten about. They spent the next week acting like a couple, holding hands on hikes, sharing a bed, making breakfast together, making plans for what might be. She said she was happy, genuinely happy in a way she hadn't been in years, in a way she couldn't remember feeling with me. On the last night, she asked him what this meant, where they stood, if they were getting back together. He'd said he wasn't ready, said he needed time to process his divorce, to figure out what he wanted from life, said maybe in a year, if they were both still available. She'd spent the entire drive home trying to figure out what to do, crying some of it, thinking the rest. Came to the conclusion that she'd made a massive mistake, that what she had with me was real and lasting, and what she had with him was just nostalgia dressed up as love. I don't believe you, I said when she finished. I'm telling the truth. I believe you're telling the truth about what happened. I don't believe you about your feelings. I think you're here because plan A didn't work out. Because he said no. And I'm plan B. The backup. The safe option. And I'm not interested in being anyone's backup plan. You're not my backup plan. Then what am I? Because from where I'm sitting, you left your husband to see if you could rekindle things with an ex. Slept with him for a week. Asked him to take you back. It didn't work out. Now you're back trying to salvage what you threw away. That's literally the definition of a backup plan. That's exactly what this is. I love you. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust, but I do love you, and I want to fix this. How? How do you fix this? How do I ever trust you again? How do I not wonder every time you text someone, or take a work trip, or say you need space if you're going back to him? If you're talking to him? If you're wishing you were with him instead of me? We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes. That's for people who want to save something worth saving. I'm not sure this is anymore. She left an hour later. I'd promised to think about it, to consider our options, to not do anything drastic right away. But honestly, I'd already made up my mind. Final update. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. She didn't contest it, didn't fight me on anything. We split assets fairly, sold the house for a small profit and divided it down the middle, split the retirement accounts, closed the joint bank accounts, separated our lives into 2 clean piles. I kept Biscuit. She didn't argue. Said it was only fair since I was the one who walked him every day anyway. The divorce was finalized 4 months after she took that trip. I signed the papers at my lawyer's office on a Tuesday afternoon, walked out into the parking lot, got in my truck, sat there for about 10 minutes just staring at the steering wheel. Then I drove to a furniture store and bought a new couch for my apartment. Figured it was time to stop sitting on Dave's hand-me-down. Moved into a 2-bedroom place across town. Nothing fancy, but it had a small yard for Biscuit. Set up my home office in the 2nd bedroom. Got back to focusing on my business. Hired another guy. Landed a contract with a property management company that kept us busy for months. About 5 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into a mutual friend at the hardware store. He got that awkward look people get when they know something you might not want to hear. You know they got back together, right? Jenna and Greg. I told him I figured that would happen. He shrugged. Said Greg finally finished his divorce. Moved back to town. They'd been together about a month now. Playing house. Posting pictures online. The whole thing. I thanked him for the heads up. Bought my electrical supplies. Went back to work. 6 months later, same friend texted me. They broke up. Apparently it was ugly. Something about him not being able to commit. Something about her realizing he was the same guy he'd always been. Something about both of them wanting a version of each other that didn't exist anymore. She tried to reach out after that. Long message on social media about how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. How she finally understood what she threw away. How she'd give anything for a second chance. I read it. Then I blocked her. 2 weeks after that, I matched with a woman on a dating app. Elementary school teacher. Liked hiking and bad reality TV. We grabbed dinner at a Mexican place downtown. Talked for 3 hours. She laughed at my jokes. I walked her to her car. She said we should do it again. We did. That was 8 months ago. We're still together. Taking it slow. She knows about Jenna. Knows the whole story. Said she appreciated that I didn't trash talk my ex. Said it told her something about my character. Last month, Jenna's sister reached out. Said Jenna was struggling. Asked if I'd consider talking to her. Just once. Said it might help her move on. I told her that wasn't my job anymore. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.